In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Marianne's guests are leaders in their field, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in their own work. They teach others to develop, refocus, and grow. Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. And remember, make every moment count.
Welcome to Moments with Marianne. Today we're here with a very special guest, Tom Gagliano, and he's here to talk to us about his book, The Problem Was Me. So welcome to the show, Tom.
Thank you, Marianne. Pleasure.
Hey, it's so great to have you here. You are like the go-to guy on addiction and parenting and relationships. So, we definitely had to have you on the show to talk about this.
I appreciate it. Well, I learned how to do it wrong early on in my life, but those experiences that I had, and, I have the diplomas and all that stuff, but it's the experiences I talk about. And that's where I've gotten a lot of my, what I talk about today, about childhood messages and the impact of those messages.
Well, I know, just from my life journey, you can't take people where you haven't been. So
right.
I'm sure you are the best person to go to in regards to this, because when you've walked that path and then overcome certain obstacles and found a way out, you're able to help people also pull themselves out of those kind of situations.
Yeah, when I wrote my first book, I gained so many clients all over the world. I have them all over the world who read my book. It's about my life and the life of other people I've helped, and they basically told me the very similar feedback, and that was, Tommy, you wrote a book about myself. I've been to a lot of therapists, a lot of different places, but your book really helps me understand exactly why I am who I am today and the power of those messages. Because, Marianne, I truly believe that our childhood messages impact every part of our life, to the intimacy we have or don't have, to our parenting skills, the careers we choose, even the roles that we play. You doing this right now with me on the air has been impacted in some way by the messages you received early on in your childhood, and I really do believe that.
Well, and I think I agree with you 100%. I think it takes you have to recognize and identify these messages, if good or bad, and then determine whether or not they work for you in your life now.
Yeah, I talk about three essentials, and one is self-awareness, as you just said. I have to know what I need to fix. I have to find out what's broken inside of me. I can't take an action unless I know that. And the second essential is taking those positive actions to change the things in your life that you're not happy with. And the third piece is maintaining those actions. We just can't change Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We have to consistently maintain those changes, and then we really can see recovery or healing occur. But, in my journey, it's really not people who need recovery. It's those who want it. When you want it, you'll do it. Needing it isn't going to get the job done.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you have to want it bad enough.
That's right.
Well,
Absolutely.
So what are some ways that we could recognize the negative childhood messages? Maybe we're just kind of like bouncing around from place to place and not really, kind of having it set in that, hey, we've got something that we should take a deeper look at.
Well, I think the question is, am I happy with my own skin? Because, at the end of the day, Marianne, the most important relationship everyone in this world has, it's not the one with our parents, our kids. It's the one with ourselves. We have to be good with us. And are we happy in our own skin? I know a lot of my clients, I facilitate groups, and many of them get selfish and self-care confused. If we grew up in a childhood, and this is what we talk about when we talk about going back to holiday and the roles we were set up to play, we get self-care and selfishness confused. Sometimes we think that if we take care of ourselves first, in a healthy way, we're being selfish. If we grew up in a childhood where the messages from the top were, we had to make mom and dad happy first. If that's the messages we received, and we felt that our happiness lied in whether or not we made them happy first, we may get the message growing up that we're selfish people, when indeed we're just using self-care and taking care of ourselves first. I see this with people pleasers all the time. You know, how many of your listeners have a problem saying no, that they just get stuck saying yes, and sometimes they want to say no? Well, I believe in that instant, too. It comes from childhood. It comes from a childhood where you always had to make other people happy first. And we don't understand how these messages keep showing up in our adult life, but they do.
Well, and so if we fall into any of these categories, the family categories, and thank God we survived the holidays, right?
Mm-hmm.
But let's say we want to change that dynamic going forward. You know, okay, so first we recognize, okay, let's say maybe I'm a people pleaser.
Right.
You know, what are some of the things that we can do to make a shift so we're not playing this role forever?
Excellent question. The first thing we have to do is, as we both agreed upon, is be aware that I do people please. We have to accept who we are. I do people please. I do sometimes say yes when I want to say no. And then if we can make that acceptance, we can move on to, okay, now to be able to say no, I need to make this a we process, not a me process. What's a we process? A we process is, who can I solicit help from? My family, my friends, maybe a professional therapist, a coach, maybe a priest, a rabbi, whoever I can talk to about this that understands that for me, in my world, it's very difficult to say no to the people I love. Now, if I can solicit that help, the next time I'm asked to do something that I don't want to do, I will say to them, I'll get back to you. I can't give you an answer right now. And at that point, I'll call those people that are in my support system and tell them I'm struggling and let them help me say no. See, what happens is we react right away. When we're in roles, a people pleaser, a caretaker that takes too much responsibility and doesn't allow others to take responsibility, and some of the perfectionists in all these roles, we right away react. And when we react, we're going to get ourselves in trouble. So take a step back, say you're going to get back to them, solicit your support group, and then when you do change that role, it will be painful. That's what makes it so tough. Call those people again. Talk to them about the discomfort in saying no. But if you can consistently do this enough, the discomfort will leave you, and at the end of the day, you'll eventually feel good about yourself. Hey, I took care of me, and that's a nice feeling.
Ooh, you are good. You definitely know your stuff. I mean, that's such a great thing, because a lot of times when people are making changes and breaking free of these family roles that they've played that just don't serve them anymore, they don't even know like what to say.
That's
so
right.
That's a great thing to have that support group, and then, you know, hey, let me get back to you, so you're not really making any commitments.
Exactly. And again, you know, we believe the reason why it's hard is we start to tell ourselves we're being selfish. That's the distorted message. It's the same message that tells some people I should never be angry at my parents. I'm a bad boy. I'm a bad girl. Or I should never disagree with my parents. I'm a bad boy. I'm a bad girl. It's distorted. If you carry that message, and if you do that, you're not being true to yourself. And again, I'll say it. You are the most important relationship you have in your life.
That is true. That is true. I mean, regardless of what other people think or expectations that they have, I mean, the only one we have to live up to is the one we see every morning in the mirror. You know? Yeah,
and if we're giving power to other people, and the funny thing is, many of us give power to the wrong people. We give power to the people that deliberately make us stay in these roles. And if we're giving power to the wrong people, we got to take a look at that. Why do I become a victim to that person? Why is that person spending so much time in my head? And that's where the problem was me.
So, and that kind of brings me to my next question. You talked about, you know, like negative self-talk. So what are some ways that we can silence that? Because I know a lot of people, they'll have that happen quite often where they're like, gosh, how are you saying, like, I was bad at this, or I was bad at that, or I let people down. What are some ways they can shift that?
Well, one of the things, you know, I wrote in my book is an inventory column where you put down the messages you received in childhood. You're never going to be successful. Messages like that, or messages like when you made a mistake, you might have felt like you were a mistake. You identified your whole self as a mistake. Not the mistakes were an opportunity to grow or an opportunity to learn. You might have a warden, and I call it a warden in my book, that constantly beats you up inside. Or in intimacy, I know for me, You know, when I was a bully as a kid and a recovering addict, and I realized when I started to work on what was broken inside of me that it wasn't my wife and kids that didn't love me. I didn't love me. And unless I worked on that, no matter what they did, I wasn't going to let love in. It just wasn't going to get through all the negativity I had as a self-defense mechanisms, all the distrust I had of intimacy, feeling that if I let someone close, they would run away. This is a distorted childhood messages that many addicts have. They become fragmented. And what happens is there's an inside to them that says if anybody really saw me, they would I'm not lovable. Nobody would love someone like me. So they build the self-defense mechanisms. And this is what happens in life. Those inner voices created in childhood are very powerful, very strong, and they imprison us, really imprison us to spend very lonely lives unless we bring them to the light, talk about them, expose them for the myth that they are, and then we allow other people to give us the positive messages that our warden or inner critic isn't giving us. So that's how we do it.
Now, I know you have a chapter that talks about trusting others. You touched on that just a little bit. I know for a lot of people if they're coming out of addictions, it could be with food, weight, drugs, alcohol, whatever. Trusting anybody else seems crazy.
Yeah, well,
so what are some ways that they can start to do that, maybe in baby steps?
Well, the first thing is, again, it starts with awareness. I realized early in my life that I didn't trust any process I couldn't control. And the reason why is because bad things happened to me as a kid. So I needed to be in control of the process. It starts with awareness first. I wrote my second book is Don't Put Your Crap in Your Kid's Diaper. And the reason why I wrote that is because we put so much expectations and fears into our children when they're at this very young age. We don't realize we're doing that. And for instance, for me, I had a dad that if I, God forbid, showed feelings or cried, he'd call me his little girl. That was his message to me. Come on, little girl. So right away, growing up, I distrusted showing emotion to anyone. I wasn't going to let anybody see how I felt. So I stopped trusting people. And I'll tell you, I had a story about 15 years ago with my son. I'll never forget it. We had to put our dog to sleep. My son was best friends with this dog. And I remember I walked him to his room. And I remember he was very, very sad. And I said, how you doing? He said, I'm doing okay, Dad. Well, I went over to him, and I put his arms around me, and I put his head on my chest, and he started to cry. And believe me, Marianne, within seconds, his tears were flying. And I knew that day, I created a safe place for him, a place to share his emotions, his feelings, a place I never had as a kid. But this is a place I was giving him. So my son can grow up and start to trust people and start to let his emotions out and not feel that he's going to be rejected or turned down. So you have to be aware, first and foremost, of don't I trust because of the messages I received, and are those messages real or are they manufactured? And who can I talk to about those messages? Who can give me what I wasn't able to get as a child?
And and it's so important, for parents, the messages that they're giving to their children. I'm pretty sure you and I are probably from the same generation, and there were very clear, roles on what girls should do and what boys should do.
You got it.
And
right.
We grew up with that, and it's like, you just had to suck it up and be a certain way,
Yep.
Even though you don't fit those roles.
Yeah, they're ingrained. They're there. And then, again, they're going to show up. I tell couples all the time, you're not just in a relationship with your spouse, but you're in a relationship with your spouse's childhood messages as well. And you got to know that. You got to know why the reaction sometimes. How many people, I have so many couples that what the husband says the wife doesn't hear, what the wife says the husband doesn't hear, because their listening filters are distorted with their childhood messages. And again, I call it the time traveling process, but the point is that we have to be aware of that, because all of that stuff shows up in the intimacy we have.
Oh, yeah. And with all the relationships, our work relationships, our family, everything.
Absolutely.
Everything.
Absolutely.
So with the new year starting, what are some tips that people can start taking right now to make massive changes in their life?
I think the first piece is make your life more of a we process. Don't try to change alone. Grab the hand of supportive people. Now, what I mean by that, Marianne, is I don't mean going to somebody that's going to judge you, that's going to say to you, hey, what the heck's the matter with you? Can't you get up early in the morning and go to the gym? Or, why don't you just tell your kid no? Well, you can't tell your kid no? We don't want to speak to people that are going to make us feel worse. We want to speak to people that have compassion and say to us things like, I know this is tough for you. How can I help you? Call me in the morning when you need that little burst of energy, or make yourself accountable to other people. I found, Marianne, that when we're accountable to other people, sometimes that helps us move forward in our life. If I know that I'm going to call Marcia in the morning and make the commitment, Marcia, I'm going to tell Johnny no right now, and it's tough for me to tell my son no, but I'm going to tell him that if he doesn't clean his room, he's not getting his allowance. You got it. Text me back when you're finished. Make your life more of a we process. Solicit the help of other people. I think that's a very important piece in the way we can all move forward.
And again, finding that right support group or
right.
like a coach like you, a counselor that would be able to help people kind of move forward in productive ways.
Yeah, and you know what? There's more people like that. See, you know what I found, Marianne? People don't know how to communicate. That's their biggest problem. I always tell couples, when I speak all over the country, I talk about the importance of presentation and communication. I could say one or two things to my son. One way he'll want to come and hug me, and the other way he'll run the other way. I have to learn how to communicate to my son in a very healthy way, even when I'm giving consequences. To say in a very calm way, you didn't put your toys away. You can't play with your toys later. You didn't come in at a certain time. Therefore, you can't go out tomorrow. You chose that. There's always ways to communicate things to our children, our spouses, where they hear it not as you're a bad person who deserves to be punished, but that I love you and I'm doing this because I love you. It's a very important piece, learning how to communicate.
And that certain actions have consequences, has nothing to do whether I love you or not, You
got it. And you say that. You chose not to clean your room, or not to put your toys away, or to come in later when you were supposed to. That was your choice. It's not mine. And we want to create a child that is ready to face the world with integrity and self-esteem. I see many parents rushing in, not letting their children get out of their own battles. They're not letting their children solve their own problems. These are the parents that come to me later and go, I don't understand why Beth is so mad at me. I used to do everything for her. Yeah, that's why she's mad at you. Because you did everything for her. You didn't allow her to problem solve, to develop coping mechanisms. Now she's out in the world and she's overwhelmed.
Yeah. And that's not a place any parent really wants to have their kid. I mean, you want to make sure that they have all the skills necessary so that they can be a healthy, productive person. And have
ready to face the world, life on life's terms. And that's, I talk so much about that in my book. We have to create a child that is ready, not a child that is going to be terrified of the world. There's healthy fears we want to put in their diaper, but there's also manufactured fears that are going to hurt them.
Mm-hmm. So let's say that a parent has a child that's a bit of a bully. What advice do you have for them as far as understanding bullying and how to deal with all of that?
I think bullies, recovering addicts, domestic violence, I think these are all individuals that have not learned how to process or share their feelings. Most likely, if you have a bully as a kid, he's either learning that somewhere in the home, because I believe everything starts in the home, or he's a kid that doesn't feel good about himself and is acting out, hurting others the way he's hurting inside or she's hurting inside. And I think the first piece is communication. You have to create a safe place as parents where your children can share their feelings, whatever those feelings are. You don't have to agree with their feelings, but remember, feelings are not right or wrong. They're not true or false. They're feelings. I can validate my son's feelings. Doesn't mean I agree with him. And we need to, more than anything, create healthy habits so our children make healthy choices on their own. Not that we're controlling them, because when they get older and they get to be teens and handcuffs are off, they're not going to do what we tell them to do. What we want and hope is they're going to make a healthy decision on their own. That's what we want to do.
And that's actually the place we want to at least put them in so that they can go from there, because it is their own decision as they get older and they go away to college, or, you know, they've grown up and moved out and done their own thing.
But we need to create that safe place where they can share their feelings. We don't want them to solicit that from the wrong people. We want them to know that they could come and tell mom and dad anything. We'll hear them. You know, my son in 8th grade, he's in 10th grade now, he came to me and said, Dad, you know, my friends smoke pot, they smoke weed, and they want me to try it. They said it's really cool. And I said, right away, Marianne, I wanted to tell him, just go in your room until you're 27 years old. That's the first thing I wanted to tell him. I'll let you out. I'll let you out when you're 27. But I didn't. And I said to him, what do you know about weed and pot? And we went on the internet. We looked at it a little bit, how weed and pot can lead into other things. And he knows about, I'm an addict. He knows about my addiction. He knows how it's been hurtful to people. We had a long conversation about that. I told him consequences. If you choose to smoke weed, you choose to break the law. That means you could go to jail. You made that choice. And we had more conversations about that. And the thing, he came to me about 2 weeks later. And I said to him, hey, what's going on with the weed? And he said, you know, Dad, I don't hang out with those kids anymore. Now, the point of the story, you know, look, it doesn't always end
Good
great.
job.
I'm giving you a good story. You know, I'm not telling you that I don't have my issues and things pop up. But the point is, he made the decision on his own. I didn't twist his arm and say, you're not hanging out with those kids anymore. He made the decision on his own. That's what we want our children to do.
Yeah, for them to make healthy decisions for themselves going forward. And, you know, I really applaud you in breaking, you know, those childhood, just not messages, but roles.
Thank you.
For your family, because it really is inspiring. And I think more people, if we had more people in the world like you, it'd just be such a better place. Right.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think that's what I started to do. I left the world of business. As a kid, I focused on business, and money was my God, until I realized that all the money in the world didn't stop me from sabotaging, you know, the people that I love, my wife and family. And it was that point that they left me for a while that I had to fix what was broken inside of me, or I was going to be a very lonely soul. And I did that, and that's when I started to facilitate groups free of charge, helping people who had negative childhood messages. And it just, one thing led to the next. I just, you know, stopped my businesses, and I wrote the book. People suggested I write my book. They wanted me to go back to school. I went back to school at 51 for my master's degree in social work. And Marianne, I hate school. Let me put that right out to you. The last thing in my life I ever thought I was going to do was go back to school. But that wasn't my plan. Somebody else had that plan. But anyway, you know, that's just what I started to do today, because I do see so many people sabotaging their life, and they don't even know why. They just, you know, that definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, and thinking you're going to have a different outcome. I see it all the time.
Well, I know that you are one of the top keynote speakers that there is on this topic, and just helping people to kind of get to the next level. Do you still do private coaching? Yeah,
I do. I do more group work, but I do private coaching. I do couples consultations. I do a lot over the phone because, again, my book has been popular all over, and I'm not going to have people from Israel, Atlanta, California, Las Vegas come to my home for sessions. So I do a lot of phone sessions. I do a lot of group work. I love groups. I love the fact that you can get people to really connect with each other and then form their own support group. Everybody in all, I facilitate 4 groups a week, and they're all connected on text messages with each other. So it's never a me process. It's always a we process. And I find that to be, very helpful to them. And, I speak when I can. When I get across the country, I try to speak as much as I can, too, to get my methodology out to a much broader range of individuals.
Yeah, you've got a huge, powerful message, and I can see where, people really do want to have you out talking to them in regards to what's going on.
Thank you.
And how to just break these paradigms,
Yeah, you got it. That's what it is. And hey, it's not easy. It's not easy.
If it was, everyone would be doing it, right?
Right. It's so much easier in life, isn't it, to look at the faults of others rather than look at ourselves. It's just the easy way out. But unfortunately, that expression, no pain, no gain, sometimes you got to walk through some pain in order to feel that self-worth and self-esteem. So unfortunately, that's the road sometimes.
Yeah, that whole thing would be like, my life would be so happy if he just got help or she just got help.
Marianne, whenever I have couples, it's the same thing. I'll ask the wife, what do you want? Oh, and they rattle off the wants. I'll ask the husband, what do you want? Oh, he rattles off the wants. Then I give him the old question, what do you need to do to get the want? Silence. All of a sudden, nothing, just silence. Hello, are you there? Hello, come in.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I need to do something. But that's typical. That's people.
Yeah, it's that whole lack of communication again.
Yes.
That.
That's what I say all the time. You're right.
Well, Tom, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us today. It's just been so enlightening.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you. And for our listeners here, we'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
He's the change management expert, interrupting ordinary lives and making them extraordinary. John Register, experiential keynote speaker, went from track and field Olympic trials candidate and Gulf War Army veteran through a career-ending injury, an amputation, to winning the Paralympic long jump silver medal in Sydney, Australia. Now he shows business executives and college sports professionals how to turn obstacles into opportunities. Book John to speak to your group. Kick off your new year resolved to create the new normal at johnregister.com.
Need an appointment with a world-class intuitive? Worried about health, finances, relationships, or career? Hire the woman $1 Million Executives hire repeatedly. Zen Cryer DeBrook, a tested, award-winning intuitive, is taking new appointments.
Zen's readings are very clear, direct, and actionable. They boost your momentum and productivity and get you on track and moving very quickly to where you want to be.
Get a fresh strategy that works, personally and professionally. Schedule today at appointmentwithzen.com. Appointmentwithzen.com.
For over 4 million people, the clock is ticking as they hope and pray for a miracle, waiting for someone to offer them a kidney and another chance at life. Ari Sittner answered that call. Ari is a social worker, therapist, rabbi, coach, consultant, and keynote speaker, and the author of the new book, The Kidney Donor's Journey. This inspiring story shares Ari's remarkable experience of faith, family, and kindness as he saved the life of a single mom with 3 kids. Find The Kidney Donor's Journey on Amazon and visit Ari at akidneydonor.com.
I know we are unlimited, not only because I healed myself with chronic disease in only 3 weeks, but because I know what has helped thousands of my clients transform their own lives. My book, A Short Path to Change, 30 Ways to Transform Your Life, offers 30 easy and quick tools you can use to help transform any aspect of your life. Visit and subscribe to my site, JennyMannion.com, JennyMannion.com, for free gifts, including a guided healing meditation and the first chapter of my book. I look forward to offering you easy ways to help you get clear for the new year.
If not me, then who? This ethos is driving the Travis Manion Foundation to empower veterans and families of fallen heroes to develop character in future generations. In 2007, Marine First Lieutenant Travis Manion was killed in Iraq while saving his wounded teammates. Travis's legacy lives on in the 5 words he spoke before leaving for his final deployment. If not me, then who? Guided by this mantra, veterans continue their service, developing strong relationships in the community and thrive in their post-military lives. Visit TravisManion.org and ensure the character of our nation's heroes lives on in the next generation. If not me, then who?
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. Our next guest, I'm very excited to be introducing him. His name is Mark Coleman. He's an inner and outer explorer who has devoted his studies to mindfulness meditation practices for over 3 decades. He is passionate about sharing the power of meditation and has been teaching mindfulness workshops and meditation retreats in 6 continents for the past 15 years. Mark is the author of Make Peace with Your Mind, How Mindfulness and Compassion Can Help Free You from the Inner Critic, and Awake in the Wild, Mindfulness in Nature as a Path of Self-Discovery. Mark holds a master's in clinical psychology and works individually with people as an executive coach and consultant, drawing on his extensive experience in working with people as a therapist. Mark is a senior meditation teacher at Spirit Rock Meditation Center, a renowned leader in mindfulness field, and teaches regularly with pioneering teachers such as Jack Kornfield and Sharon Salzberg. Make Peace with Your Mind was named #1 mindfulness book by Mindful Magazine. So let's welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you, Marianne. Great to be here.
Hey, it's fabulous to have you here. It seems that you are the go-to guy for mindfulness, and gosh, your book dealing with the inner critic and developing that self-compassion and mindfulness is something that we just can't get enough of, especially with the beginning of the new year.
Yes, at this time of year, I think there's it's a lot of things going on with families and holidays and changes and wishes for the new year. And, mindfulness is a great tool that helps us stay balanced, grounded, present, centered to deal with both the external and the internal flurries that are going on. So really important to have some kind of mindful awareness practice that helps you stay present with all the changing things going on.
Well, and for our listeners, and I've dealt with this personally myself, we've really developed that negative self-critic. Is there hope for us?
Well, there is. I've worked with thousands of people all over the world, and the reason I wrote the book, Make Peace with Your Mind, was because I saw so many people were plagued with self-judging, negative, belittling self-talk. And I wanted to help people find a way to work with it. And I have, through years of teaching, developed various tools and techniques and practices, primarily mindfulness and also compassion practices, but also a whole host of other things that I call the Critic Toolkit in the book. And through those, I've seen people make really quite radical, transformative change. I think the main problem with the critic is we don't recognize it because it's become such a habitual part of the living room furniture that we let it just talk and belittle us and wear us down, that as soon as we actually start becoming aware of it and start applying some tools and techniques, we can actually have a much more healthy relationship to that part of our mind.
Well, and I know in your book you discuss neuroplasticity and how it plays a part in our, having developed our inner critic and how we can change that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so neuroplasticity is this idea that the brain isn't static. It doesn't just, grow in younger years and then deteriorate. It actually develops and is quite plastic and malleable depending on what we choose to focus on. And so in the book, I talk a lot about how we have a negative bias, how we're often oriented towards what's wrong. And when we listen to the voice of the critic, it's particularly oriented towards our faults, what we didn't do right. It has 20/20 hindsight, and so whatever we do isn't good enough, isn't perfect enough. And if we listen to that voice a lot, that's what we're developing. That's what we're strengthening in our brain and the neural pathways. And instead, if we seek to focus on what's positive, on what's good, on our own essential goodness, on our own particular strengths and gifts, then we start to orient and shift the focus of the brain to one that's oriented to seeing what's healthy and positive rather than what's wrong and problematic.
So with that, at least it gives us hope, saying, hey, we can make some changes and adjustments. We just have to be mindful when we hear that self-critic and being able to make those small shifts.
Right, and what's the good news about it is it only takes a moment. Like as soon as you begin to become aware of the critic, then you notice its voice, you notice its negative tone, you notice its impact on you, and you can also ask yourself, is this healthy? Is this useful? Is it accurate? Do I need to listen to this voice? Is there something underneath this voice that I'm trying to say, or is it just a much healthier way to look at myself and my actions, which of course there always is.
Mm-hmm. And determine whether or not that's kind of a true statement or, kind of needs to be just kind of tossed over the shoulder. Now, when we have this inner critic that's just plaguing us, let's say, we're on ourselves in regards to, with the new year coming up, maybe we're making resolutions. A lot of people do this in regards to maybe healthier eating habits or, being more active. What are some ways that they can go ahead and make small shifts so it's a doable thing for them when they hear that critic?
Well, as I said, the first thing that's really important is to recognize it, and that's where mindfulness comes in, to make a distinction between an average thought or a discerning thought or a discriminating thought, which is just assessing and noticing, versus a judging thought, which has a negative tone that's really has an attack on our goodness. So when we listen to the critic, it's not just, assessing what we did or didn't do or didn't say or did say, but it's actually an implication that because we did something, because we didn't say something, we're therefore a bad person or, our worth is questionable. And so first we recognize it. And then as you said earlier, we bring some inquiry. Is this really true? Is this a helpful thought? If I share this with my best friend, would they really think that I'm worthless or stupid or never going to get myself together or I'm an imposter in some way? And I do this with my people who come to my workshops. I have them write down their judgments and then do some inquiry and share them with other people, which of course sends a ripple of fear around the room. Oh my God, I've got to tell people about how I judge myself. And what people find is, one, we all have similar kind of judgments. We're not good enough. We should have done more. We could be better. But also we see that when we see how universal it is, we see, that it's not actually that accurate. It's not very specific. And it's mostly distorted perception. So we take a step back with mindfulness and go, this isn't really accurate. It's not really helpful. And so what I say to my critic is I say, thank you for your opinion, because it is an opinion. It is a point of view. It's not objective truth. And then I let it go by like the clouds in the sky and pay attention to something that's actually more useful, more present, more alive in the moment.
And what a beautiful place to be in, where you can really sit and have that peaceful mind.
Right. I mean, that's what we're all searching for, is how to be at peace and at ease wherever we are. And then the funny thing is we don't actually pay attention to what's getting in the way. And again, the reason I wrote this book was I think the number one source of people's dis-ease and mental anguish and unhappiness is the way that they talk to themselves. It's their own negative stories. And so as soon as we can get a handle on that, we can actually find much more access to a sense of peace and well-being.
Well, and to kind of bridge on that, you have a chapter in your book that's titled Giving Up Hope for a Better Past. What does that mean, and how can someone make those shifts?
Yeah, well, again, this is an interesting time of year. At the end of the year, we're looking back, we're reviewing what we've done and what we achieved and what we perhaps did, the goals that we set that we didn't accomplish and the choices that we make. And it's often easy to look back with 20/20 hindsight, which the inner critic does, and says, oh, well, you should have done this, or you should have invested in that stock, or you shouldn't have said that to that person. Because, in hindsight, we can see all kinds of things that we didn't know at the time. And when I say forgiveness is giving up all hope of a better past, it means we spend so much time ruminating, trying to make the past better. And it's, of course, the past is already done. It's gone. It's happened. And what we need to bring, why I talk about, the subtitle of the book, how mindfulness and compassion can help free you from the inner critic. Why I talk about compassion so much is, first we need to forgive ourselves. We are who we are. We didn't sign up for this body and this mind and this personality. It's somewhat developed through circumstances and conditioning. And the same with our actions. We do the best we can whenever we can with the information to hand. And we can look back and say, oh my God, I wish I'd done different things and made different choices. If we could have done better, we would have done better. And so we need to just accept what happened. Of course, we can learn from the past to make better choices for the future, but there's no value in berating and belittling ourselves for the things that we have done. We have to look at them clearly, accept them, forgive ourselves, make a positive intention, and move on.
I know that self-forgiveness can be a really tough hurdle for a lot of people to overcome. In your book, you had a really good meditation that allowed, the reader to start fostering, a sense of self-forgiveness for them and developing that.
Yeah, I think meditation practice is really a wonderful way to develop some of these qualities like mindfulness, like compassion, like forgiveness. And so, there is a practice in the book, and there's a whole host of practices, as you know, where we basically, in the same way that the critic uses phrases, uses statements to judge us, we can also use words in a very positive frame. So we can, there's a reflection on forgiveness that actually just repeating certain words that allow us to forgive ourselves, to hold what we did with clarity and some kindness, and then to let go. In the same way that we use another practice called loving kindness practice, which is bringing a warmth and a friendliness to ourselves rather than a harshness and a judgment. And again, using words that express our deepest wish for ourselves, repeating those words over and over can actually bring a profound change in how we view and hold and relate to ourselves.
Especially what we know with science in regards to how the brain is wired. Rewiring it in such a way that allows us to rewrite that inner critic, I think, from what I've read in your book, is the way to go.
For sure. We've learned a lot in the last 20 years about the brain and how we can retrain the brain depending on what we do, what we pay attention to, how we think. And so it's really critical. And I think how we are now is a product of what we've thought and what we've done. And so we might ask, well, how do I feel about my present experience, and how do I want that to shift? And if I want to feel peaceful in the future, that means we need to lay the steps and foundations for peace in this moment, which is, one of the factors is, bringing awareness and kindness to these critical voices so we don't keep deepening those neural pathways.
Well, and I know in your book you discuss that studies have shown that people are happier when they're living in the present moment. What are some little tools that our listeners can start using to be more in the present moment now?
Yeah, well, many, many tools, and I do outline some in the book. The first one is, like right now as you're listening, to be present to the physical experience of your body. So maybe you're sitting in your chair as you're interviewing me, but maybe listeners are walking or they're lying down, or they're driving, or who knows where they might be. Bring attention to your body. The body is always in the present moment. So if you can feel your feet, feel your legs, notice your hands, notice your body's temperature. And then a really great tool is being aware of your breath. That's one of the primary tools for cultivating a simple awareness, is using the breath as a support. So right now as you're listening, simply attending to the sensations of the breath is one very simple way of cultivating attention. And then another way is to also bring awareness to your senses. Like notice what you're hearing right now. Maybe the background sounds, the silence between sounds. Notice what you're seeing. Notice what you're feeling in your body. Noticing what you're smelling if you're outside. Noticing what you're tasting if you just had a sip of tea. So the body, the senses, the breath, all great ways to bring attention into the moment.
What a beautiful place to be in.
Yes. And there's a great sign in Vegas that says you have to be present to win. And I think we live in a beautiful world and a beautiful planet for the most part. I mean, there's difficulty and stress, but it's a beautiful planet. But we have to be present to notice it. We can go on the most fantastic hike, but if we're worrying about our work or our children's education or the stress in our bodies, we don't notice anything. We don't notice the sunset, the look in our child's eye, our dog wagging its tail, or the, all kinds of beautiful things, the smell of the roses. So we have to be present as the first stepping stone to that sense of well-being and joy in the present moment.
Well, and I know through what I've seen in regards to your book and your website that you really talk about, being in nature and being in the present moment and how that kind of elevates things.
Yeah, so as you say, I'm a big nature lover. My first book was called Awake in the Wild, and that's the name of the work that I take people out. I bring people out backpacking and kayaking and rafting and basically anywhere in nature that's beautiful, and I encourage people to cultivate this mindful attention, which basically means, as we were doing earlier, being aware of your senses, being aware of your body, being aware of your environment with a keen, clear awareness, as if you were like a biologist, really curious of studying a plant or an insect or an astronomer studying the sky. And when we bring that quality of awareness, attention to nature, then of course we're more present. We enjoy it, we appreciate it, we're more touched by it, we feel the interconnection, we feel the love and the wonder and the mystery. But it all starts with this simple quality of attention. And we can start that right in this moment as you're listening to the show and you're looking out the window at the clouds, as I'm doing right now, or you're on a walk or you're driving. Can you be present to the nature that's all around? And the more we do that, and the research shows, the more we attune to nature, actually our blood pressure goes down, our anxiety, stress levels reduces, we feel more sense of well-being and connection. So, and even if you're living in the city, as I did when I first started my meditation practice, there's always sky, and there's wind, and there's a few trees, and there may be a park, and you see the sunlight falling on branches and the lichen growing up through the cracks in the pavement. Nature is everywhere to be appreciated.
Well, and I know another way that would be helpful also, that you have meditation CDs on iTunes that people could go ahead and purchase and listen to those to kind of help get them in the sense of, starting to be more mindful in their breathing or meditation. And it's kind of nice. I know when I've lived in busy cities, sometimes it's hard for me to get centered and to find that quiet space. So it's nice to have tools like that.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm a big believer in supporting people, especially when they're new to meditation. So I did create some CDs on mindfulness, on heart practices. I'm on an app called will.com, which has hundreds of meditations. And it's really nice in the beginning to have a guidance from a teacher who's sort of walking you through, holding your hand step by step, what to do with your attention, how to work with distractions, how to cultivate these lovely qualities of presence and awareness and kindness. And, use them as much as we need to, especially because, our minds, whether it's our critical mind or just our busy thinking mind and our worrying, ruminating mind, it can be so loud when we're sitting quietly by ourselves trying to meditate. And so the more support we have, whatever guidance, resources, I think they're actually great tools to use until we establish that ability to meditate on our own.
I am a big fan of that because there are some days where meditation's easy and I can get right in the zone and it takes me no time, and other days my monkey mind is just running away.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've meditated for 30 years, and even after 30 years, if there's stress in my life, there's a lot going on, you can be guaranteed the brain is not going to stop thinking about that just because I decided to meditate. No, it carries on merrily thinking and planning and strategizing, and so we all have our work to do.
Well, without a doubt. It's just like any athlete, it takes practice. We have to constantly do the practice. And it just gets easier and easier. Well, I know that you have some great events coming up this coming year, so our listeners can also take advantage of that and meet with you personally, either for book signings, or I know you've got an event also, I think it's a meditation you're doing in Big Sur. Yes.
So I teach at a beautiful meditation center called Esalen, which is on the Big Sur, North California coast. And I teach there many, many times a year. I've got a weekend event coming up in beginning of January, this January 6th to the 8th. And then all kinds of other events through the year. I got some other lectures. I teach at a place called Spirit Rock Meditation Center in Marin County in North California, and I got a day event on January 29th, and I got lots of book events. Actually, I'm going to be in DC in New York, late January, early February, in LA, early February. And you can go to my main website, markcoleman.org, M-A-R-K, Coleman, C-O-L-E-M-A-N.org, and that has a list of my complete book tour and teachings, and I teach all kinds of places and courses and classes, including much on the inner critic this year and next year, and also meditation retreats on mindfulness and love and compassion, and then my nature retreats where I go to Baja, Mexico, kayaking with dolphins, or I go to New Mexico up in the mountains. So many, many wonderful places to come and learn how to meditate.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, Big Sur is amazing as it is, and you've got all these wonderful locations where people can really get immersed in the whole, mindfulness practice, because sometimes you just need to get away and get that extra push to kind of give you the help you need to dissolve that inner critic.
Absolutely. I think there's nothing, I've been leading meditation retreats for about 20 years now, and there's nothing like getting away from your routines and your desk and your work and your habits and just stepping out and having a day or a weekend or a week to be quiet and to turn that gaze of attention inwards. Our lives are so busy with our work and families and technology that we rarely have a chance to pause and breathe and catch up with ourselves and turn that attention inwards. And so the reason why meditation retreats and courses and places have been around for thousands of years is that, there's a human need to slow down, to pause, to breathe, to reflect, to tune into those deeper rhythms and deeper callings in ourselves, and to, look at the deeper questions of life. And, and of course, the critic will no doubt follow you into those meditation courses and classes and retreats. And we get to do deeper work. We get to really see, wow, this thing really follows me around. I can go to Hawaii and it follows me around. It goes to Africa next time, and there it is. And so, we get to see, it's not just the place that I'm in or the family I'm in or the work I'm in. It's really my own mind. And that's what I learned when I first started meditating. I was a punk rocker. I was an anarchist. I was an angry young man. And I didn't, I had a lot of rage against the world. And I thought that if only the world was fixed, I'd be happy. And then meditation taught me to turn my attention inwards. And I realized, wow, it's not just the world that's, a mess. It's my own mind is a mess, and it needs some serious surgery and attention. And that was really helpful to begin to start using these tools of mindfulness and compassion, which I talk a lot about in the book, to really help understand my own mind and find some ease within it.
I think a lot of people can relate to that. Coming from I just look back at when I was younger, everything was confusing, and mindfulness, what was that?
Right.
It just didn't make any sense. And so when you start down that path, it's great to have these tools like your workshops and your books and your meditation CDs in order for people to kind of peel back. Not really onion. I don't like that analogy, but more it's like a rose. You have a petal that's, a new petal that's discovered every time that, that you kind of dive into your practice. So what a treat. And, thank you so much, Mark, for taking the time to be on the show with us today. What an honor it's been to spend this time with you.
Great. It's been my pleasure too. Really delightful. And, I hope your audiences listening find some use in these words and take a look at your own mind and the critic and see how a little awareness and compassion can really help bring some inner peace.
I think it's a good way to start a new year,
Yes, going forward without that critic. That would be a different year.
Leave that back in 2016. Let's go forward, So
there you go.
Thank you again, Mark, for taking the time to be on the show with us today. Gosh, we'd love to have you back to talk more about mindfulness with us. This is such a great topic, and you really are the go-to person for that. If you're looking to connect with Mark, please visit his website at markcoleman.org. And also sign up for his newsletter, be part of his community, and of course, don't forget to make your purchase of Make Peace with Your Mind. So as we close out 2016, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to be part of this great community. And I wish a new year for you that gives you all that your heart desires. So, thank you for taking the time to be with us. And remember, make every moment count.
Join us next time for Moments with Marianne, when host Marianne Pestana brings another inspirational gifted leader to help us grow. Tune in every second Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Moments with Marianne, when the Dream Vision 7 radio network is at 1510 a.m. Boston. Or catch Moments with Marianne every Thursday and Friday at 5 p.m. and 5 a.m. Eastern Time by going to dreamvision7radio.com. To learn how Marianne started her business from the ground up, visit mariannepestana.com. Don't miss this, and remember, make every moment count.